Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Tax Matters as we begin the second quarter of the year 2023. On the last two episodes of the program, we have been sharing with you excerpts from the Public Enlightenment webinar hosted by the FRS on Monday, 13th March 2023. On this episode, we want to share with you the paper presented by Mrs. Chiamaka Obi, Group Lead Digital Innovation Support Group at the FRS on the theme of the webinar, the impact of the FRS digital innovation in tax administration.
Let me start with saying, first of all, what really do we understand by digital innovation? I will then share briefly the FRS experience and impact it has had on FRS mandates, especially on collection. Briefly discuss the pros and cons, and then the challenges with implementation. I will also give a high-level roadmap on where we are heading to with our core solution, which is the Tax Pro Max. So as a way of introduction, a lot of definition has been given for what digital innovation is all about. However, I'm taking all encompassing to say digital innovation is just all about technology realignment. It is a new investment in automation initiatives, business models, and processes to more effectively compete in the ever-changing digital world. The changes provided by rapid advancement in technology has led to an enhancement in connectivity, financial inclusion, evolving customer expectations, thereby putting enormous pressure on organizations to deliver real-time personalized services to stakeholders. This is why tax administrations like FRS are also employing technology in one form or the other to automate its processes, to better manage compliance, increase, protect, and sustain the tax base, and reduce administrative burden. Therefore, the main object of FRS embracing digital innovation, which I will call digitalization now, is mainly to improve taxpayer experience, strengthen the institution, increase the revenue generation capability, and ultimately the economic development in Nigeria.
On what the service has done in the area of digital innovation.
I will start with offering convenience and improved services to taxpayers. And this we did by deploying electronic services. Electronic services as it relates to registration of taxpayers, and this includes non-resident taxpayers, filing solution, then payments, as well as issuance of receipts and withholding credits, stamp duty, tax clearance certificates, and utilization of withholding credits during the time of filing. We also have opened different channels for payments to allow the taxpayers choice, be it InterSwitch, eTransact, Remitter, and then NEET. We're also integrating with different sectors so as to track and deduct VAT payments at source, ensuring prompt remittance to FRS designated account in CBN. Some of the sectors that have been operationalized and in use are financial services, hospitality sector, branded retail outlets, cable and wireless, and we still have a few sectors that is work in progress. We're also interchanging data with third-party MDAs and others, such as CAC, Nigerian Customs Service, CBN, Federal Ministry of Trade and Industry with regards to the trade portal, and BPP. We are also exchanging information with financial institutions as well as the OECD countries. We've enabled all social media platforms for ease of taxpayer education, sensitization, and brand management. We have a very active website. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and actively engaging with taxpayers. Our taxpayers are having better experience. We have to enable our customer contact center where taxpayers can call from every part of the world to speak directly to a person and make inquiries. And the contact center is multilingual. It currently can communicate with English, Pidgin, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, as well as French and Arabic. All of these are giving the taxpayers and other stakeholders a much better experience in interacting with the tax administration. Like I mentioned, our core mandate is on collection. Therefore, let me use the collection impact to illustrate how digitalization has impacted tax administration for FIRS. And I'm taking a comparison from 2014 to 2022, as at December 31, 2022. In 2014, FIRS was majorly still depending on oil sector for its revenue generation. However, this started to change from 2015. So taking the 2014 data as a baseline, oil collection was 2.4 trillion, whereas non-oil was 2.2 trillion. Now in 2015, then it began to change. Oil collection dropped to 1.2 trillion, while non-oil collection increased to 2.4 trillion. In 2022, ending December 31, 2022, oil collection was a little over 4 trillion, whereas non-oil collection was 5.9 trillion. That's almost 6 trillion. And all of this we've experienced due to technology. It has played a key role in ensuring and sustaining this performance.
There is more.
There are other areas of our function that technology has also impacted, such as convenience to taxpayers who are now able to do a lot of their services using our electronic platforms. And that has also improved our service delivery to taxpayers. It has increased revenue generation as expected, as well as its capability, staff capacity to generate revenue more effectively and efficiently. There's also automatic exchange of data. They can only be with other stakeholders or relevant stakeholders, and this can only be possible through technology. It has also simplified our reporting capabilities. It has reduced our cost of enforcing compliance, as well as improving staff efficiency.
On next steps.
For our core solution, which is the tax pool max, this is just to give a high-level roadmap on what we plan to do between January this year and then December of 2023. In January to March, we promised to, or we outlined to implement the automatic tax clearance certificate, which we have done. It went live January 4, 2023. We also plan to operationalize the tax audit and investigation module, which we have done. We've completed the user acceptance test. We've actually gone live March 1st. The automated input VAT claim is also operationalized. We are currently integrating with the sectors that will have automated VAT collection data tracking at source. Hopefully, by the beginning of next quarter, that's Q2, we would have integrated with the few sectors that we have automated. We plan to do a self-service taxpayer registration come Q2, as well as the petroleum profit tax module, and also the integration with GIFMIS. We are redesigning our user support procedure, where we are having the tax pro max focal officers in all the tax offices provide the first line support. With the successful implementation of the FIRS 4 cardinal goals and the digital transformation, we believe that FIRS is gearing towards the future where taxpayers will be delighted to pay their taxes without anybody wielding the big stick for them to comply.
Mrs. Ben Obi's paper and other presentations which we shared with you in the first two installments of this series were followed by a robust question and answer session which we'll be sharing with you in the last installment of our story of the webinar, which will come your way very soon. Our question of the week today comes from one of those questions. For a new company that has no historical data in terms of revenue, profits and the like, apart from registering its details with the FIRS, what else is required to get tax clearance certificates?
A new company can get tax clearance certificates as long as it is registered on Tax Promax and it has signified its commencement and if its profile is active on the system. You can log in once you get your login details upon registration. You then go to tcc.firs.gov.ng, log in, and then you can generate your tax clearance certificate.
I'm a very busy man. My business involves a lot of traveling and I interface with lots and lots of people and organizations. Tax compliance used to be a big drag on my business. It was time consuming and very costly. But now, no more. Introducing the FIRS Tax Promax, the truly fully end-to-end tax administration solution for companies' income tax, value-added tax, petroleum profits tax, and all other tax types. For fast, efficient, and convenient end-to-end tax experience, log on to www.taxpromax.firs.gov.ng. Tax Promax has turned things around for me. It is fast, user-friendly, and cost-effective. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC.
Welcome once again. In continuation of our series on how to make the Nigerian tax system better, which began last episode, we want to bring you more from our guests. We begin with the president of the CITN. We have with us the president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Mr. Adeshino Adedayo. Mr. Adedayo, welcome to Tax Matters.
Thank you, Amaka, for having me.
So we are looking at the tax system in Nigeria. Could you please share with us your thoughts on the tax system in Nigeria?
Naturally, a system is a coherent plan of action, and it actually has to do with processes. The tax system in Nigeria has actually improved, but there is still room more for improvement.
So how can we make it better?
The truth of the matter is this. For you to make a system better, it actually requires you working on it on a consistent basis. The capacity building part is one, the technical part is the other. The accountability, which is the area a lot of citizens are actually agitated, is the third one. If you now look at it beyond that, Nigeria has 36 plus 1 in terms of state and federal capital territory. And if you want to actually improve, you cannot improve one and ignore the other. So for the tax system in Nigeria to be effectively improved, we must look at all the 36 states. They must build capacity, they must have effective regulatory framework, and thirdly, they must equally have a situation where the governance is not far from those who are being governed. That is very important.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Now let's look at the tax to GDP ratio of Nigeria, which is hovering, around 6 to 8%, way below our neighboring countries. Now, how do you think we can raise the Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio?
Now, naturally, beyond the fact that we do not want to look at it like an African magic thing, we need to actually realize that these things takes time. It's a process. And like Warren Buffett said, you cannot say because you are in a hurry and you think if you get 9 women pregnant, they will deliver in 1 month. It doesn't happen that way. In order to strengthen the tax system, we must look at what are the processes we need to put in place. The starting point of the processes has to do with the law and policy. The law and policy is the area where I think the Finance Act has been addressing. And when it comes to policy issue, we should be looking at what are the policies that are making people to run from tax administrators or from even tax payment. We need to start addressing that. Having addressed that, we now need to talk about education. We need to build capacity. In doing this, we must engage people, even up to market women. and talking about people who are not in the real formal system. Let them understand that tax is not a black box. It is something that can be understood. I have to praise Tax Matters in this area because the challenge has to do with people run from tax, thinking it's so complicated. But what we are meant to do is to simplify it. And thereafter, at the governance side, we do not want a situation where the issue becomes so opaque and not accountable. Whatever we collect in terms of tax administration and tax payment, let us tell the people and let them know what we are doing with it. Very important. And our system will keep improving.
You spoke about accountability. How can we deepen voluntary tax compliance among the citizenry?
When people start seeing improvement, we start seeing development, where they start seeing evidence of the fact that governance is not too far away from them, trying to convince them to pay tax will not be too hard to accomplish. But when they have this feeling that where is our money going to, where is it heading to, they are going to run from tax payment, and it becomes a Herculean task for those of us who are their advisors. Now, naturally, coming back to the basics, just like you said, we need to start talking about how do we close the gap between those who are being governed and those who are governing us. And in order to do this, show development, show development, show development. I said it 3 times, because when you show development, you do not need rocket science to convince people about why you should pay tax. So these are areas where we need to work on.
From Obajana to Kaba, to Apapa, to Wurunshoki, those are 2 important roads. Apapa Wurunshoki was the gridlock point, really, of our biggest port, and by extension, the whole economy. So we're nearly done with that 27-kilometer road, building it with concrete. That road was built in 1974-75. So that's the road that evacuates the port from Apapa through Mile 2, Ushudi, Bagada, Wurunshoki, Ojota, Ibadan, Oyo, Ogbomoso, or Shagamu, Benin, Ore, either way you want to go. So it's a national asset situated in Lagos, but it doesn't belong to Lagosians. We are just trustees of it, because all the importers of Nigeria who use that port. So that is how significant tax can be. Just one road, relieving a whole nation. And Obajana Kaba leads to the cement factory of the sponsor of that road. So just go to the gentlemen and women who work in that factory. But you know their personal income is paid to Kogi State. So don't miss it. But then the company pays income to the federal government. And then, but that road is the one that keeps that company in production. If that company shuts down production, the jobs are gone. The tax incomes are gone. So you see how tax goes both ways, to keep businesses going, to earn more taxes, and to put them back.
Taxpayers' money in action. Still on deepening tax compliance, Ms. Esiri Agbeyi of PwC was one of our guests in the first installment of this series. How can we then deepen voluntary tax compliance among the citizenry?
It's a good question. I think we must look again at the social contract. When companies go out to say they want to sell their products or market their products, there's a deliberate intent about building trust in society so that you then have your natural customers organically flow to you. And that connection is something that's intangible. It's not just about saying, I'm going to sell a product. You're building a brand that people can trust, and then they naturally just want to buy those products. It's the same with tax. With taxes, there is a social contract. If you're going to collect from people, the people must believe that those taxes are working for them. How do you then show to them that the taxes are indeed working for them? There are different agencies who have the obligation to make sure that first we collect the taxes, and then secondly, we make the taxes work for the people. But the two need to speak to each other. And so we must go back to that drawing board to say, for every agency that has the duty to collect, having reported properly, how have we used those taxes? And how are we holding accountable those who we have put in positions to help us with the drafting of those laws? And it's the process that we're not necessarily following through on. So everyone has a stake to play here. You have a stake, I have a stake to play in there. The first thing is really about understanding the laws and making sure that we comply. But again, from the agency side, from government side, we need to have agencies that stand true to what the law has said they should do. There needs to be proper reporting transparency. There needs to be demonstration that those taxes are indeed being used for certain things. And it's very clear what we need them for: education, roads. We want good transportation system. We want good networks. All of those things need to be actively demonstrated in every state, at every federal level, at every local government level. So there's a lot of work that we need to do if we want everyone to be committed to this. That force or bullying effect where we say, you must pay the taxes. Of course, you definitely want to use that sometimes, but then threatening is not always a good way to get everyone on board. And so people need to trust that process.
Mr. Irikume was also our guest last episode. Now let's come down to the FRS and the State Boards of Internal Revenue Services. What do you think they need to do differently?
Yeah. What you see globally is that countries understand that if you're dealing with multinationals that can operate in different jurisdictions, you need cooperation and you need data. The ideal thing to do would be actually to collapse everything into one. Just have one tax authority that administers taxes across state and federal level, customs and income tax. But that's not going to happen in Nigeria. So we probably need to employ the solution we're seeing globally, where, Kenyan Revenue Authority is connecting with the HMRC, connecting with the US IRS, and they're sharing data. They've come up with things like the common reporting standards, and so on. In Nigeria, we've signed them and we're implementing them, but internally, they say charity begins at home. The different tax authorities need to come up with a cooperation agreement whereby things are done together. That's the only way to deal with double non-taxation. With someone saying I'm resident in, for me, I can say I'm resident in, Ogun State. I work in Lagos. I can keep my family in Delta. What state am I tax resident? So I can tell Lagos State, no, I'm in Delta. I can tell Delta, no, I'm in Ogun State. Cooperation would ensure that that issue is dealt with. I think there's also a need to have a consolidated database, for tax identification. And perhaps the same platform needs to be used for tax administration. The way I would probably think about restructuring it, if I had a literary license, would be similar to what they do in the US. The US, you pay state tax and you pay federal tax. But the states use the same data that is used at the federal level. So it's just that the base on which you compute the taxes are different. The rates are also different. So you can actually overlay that sort of cooperation and ensure that tax filing is done both at the state level and the federal level. With that sort of solution, I think you deal with the state bit. At the federal level, I think we just probably need to employ the system that has been, used in India. Similar approach that we've used in India. And that would involve the business community coming up with the solution to tackle the problem. Now, many of these big businesses, there's a value chain, a supply chain of taxpayers that supply them. So if I pick, a big telco, for example, someone supplies them recharge cards, someone supplies them the towers, So there are several taxpayers in that value chain. So they understand the value chain and can profess solutions that would ensure that you bring these people in. So I think that would be my recommendation.
To make Nigeria greater, all hands must be on deck. And the greatest contribution that anyone can make to this quest is to pay their taxes as and when due. Of course, it goes without saying that government at all levels must put taxpayers' money to good use. And that leads us to the announcement by the CITN of the upcoming 25th edition of the Annual Tax Conference, which will hold in Abuja from Monday, May 8th to Friday, May 12th. Theme is Nigeria of the Future, Achieving Sustainable Development Through Taxation. Very apt if you ask us. We thank you for watching. Let's do this again next week. Same station, same day of the week, and same time of the day. Remember to share your view on this episode and previous episodes of the program on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, by text or by calling. And remember, you can reach out directly to the FRS through the contact center. It pays to pay your tax.